What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another All Sports Now YouTube video. Thank you for joining me today. It's been about 4 weeks since we actually put some content out here, but we're going to try and do a weekly pick series starting with week 5. Didn't do it for the first 4 weeks. I was making these graphics on the All Sports Now Instagram, but I'm going to try and pick these on here. Quick 15 to 20 minute segment before the Thursday night game every single week. So with that being said, I'm 44-20 right now, 13-3 last week. Had a phenomenal week. Didn't call a couple of upsets, but that's completely okay. I did not call Tennessee losing to the Jets. I don't think anybody in America did, but that happened. So with that being said, I'm going to give like a quick 30 to 60 second breakdown of every single game, and you can disagree with me, agree with me, make sure that you let me know in the comments what you want me to do going forward too, but this will be a weekly series all the way through the Super Bowl, so you'll be getting some weekly content up until February, and then we'll start doing some more NBA stuff as well. So now we're going to go to the London game. It's the Jets against the Falcons, and last week I definitely would have said the Falcons because the Jets looked like they were on track to go 0-17, but they stole one from the Titans. I want to give the Jets a lot of credit. I think Robert Saleh is a great coach. Zach Wilson had a game that was 5 times better than anything we've seen so far this year, but the Titans also did not have A.J. Brown, Julio Jones. Derrick Henry had a phenomenal day, but that secondary was getting cut up by Cory Davis, ironically, a former wide receiver of the Titans. Zach Wilson looked a lot more comfortable, but I didn't want to give them the game here until I realized that Calvin Ridley and Gage are both out. So their wide receiver depth is extremely depleted. It's down to Kyle Pitts pretty much. Matt Ryan has looked subpar considering his weapons. Mike Davis hasn't been great. And then we have Cordero Patterson's been the Swiss Army knife on this team. He literally put up like 45 fantasy points in almost all formats or more last week. Absolutely nuts, being used as a wide receiver and a running back. Using him how the Bears did last year, just to a greater extent. With that being said, you look at this New York Jets team. They have a solid defense. They were able to contain everyone on the Titans except for Derrick Henry for the most part, and it paid off. That can happen here as well. This Atlanta team has always been meant for their offense. They've always been known for their offensive production, but they're not doing that good this year. They're going to be even more depleted going into this matchup. They're going to have that jet lag as well, to be honest with you, because they're both going to London. I think the defense of the Jets is actually going to hold up pretty well, and the offense is going to look fine. I think we're going to see more of that Zach Wilson, Cory Davis connection. Look, I've always had a rule of thumb with fantasy: start the weapons that are going up against the Atlanta Falcons because they haven't fixed their defense since the Super Bowl a few years ago when they blew a 28-3 lead. So that's my take on that. I think it's going to be a really close game, but for the first time in a while, I have the Jets winning 2 in a row. They might have won 2 in a row last year when they decided to tank the first 13 weeks and then they messed that up. But nonetheless, I see them getting 2-3. It'll be a close matchup, but I do have Zach Wilson and Cory Davis having huge days. Moving on to New England against Houston, 2 teams that are definitely depleted in comparison to where they were a couple years ago. New England was routinely winning the Super Bowl, and Houston kept getting to the AFC divisional round. I do have New England coming back. They had a phenomenal game against Tampa Bay, the Super Bowl champs, despite almost losing to them, or almost beating them. But you look at the Belichick-Brady matchup, they nearly cancel out, and I don't think they're going to have trouble against Houston here. Their defense, other than Zach Cunningham, has been abysmal. It has not been impressive at all. I expect Jacoby Myers to have a really good day. I expect the 2 tight ends, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, to have a good day. Mac Jones should be more comfortable with throwing down the field. He actually started to do that against that Tampa Bay secondary that features Richard Sherman now, and he had some success as well, so he's starting to get more courage. And I do expect a bounce back today from Damian Harris as well, as long as they give him some reps. So I'm going to take New England on this one rather easily. It could get out of hand quickly. Detroit against Minnesota, I feel like I'm a lot less confident than I usually am in picking Minnesota because despite the fact that Detroit is 0-4, they've put together 6 or 7 really good quarters this year. They just can't play a full game. They played horribly in the first half against Baltimore, and then they nearly came back, and then Justin Tucker put a 66-yarder on their head for the NFL record. Against the Bears, they just didn't show up, and then by the time they started scoring, it was already almost 3 quarters in. So they had a quarter to come back from a 3-possession game. It's not ideal situations. The Bears looked really good on offense, which does not happen often, so that should speak volumes about this Detroit secondary, something they have not been great with ever since they let go of Darius Slay a couple years ago and Desmond Trufant as well. Darnell Mooney did phenomenal against this team. I, as a Bears fan, obviously watched it very closely. And with that being said, I think Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are going to have really good days. Conklin's going to have a really good day. Kirk Cousins is going to fillet this team on defense. I think Jared Goff will have a nice day. This Vikings defense is nothing scary, to be honest with you, but I think Minnesota's weapons are going to be way too overwhelming. Whether it be Dalvin Cook or Alexander Mattison, whoever ends up being in there will do their damage as well. David Montgomery had a great day against them until he got hurt. So I just see this going really well for Minnesota. Tough matchup, though, because this Detroit team is making strides, and I do think they're going in the right direction for the first time in a very long time. We move on to Philadelphia against Carolina. Eagles against Panthers. I believe CMC is coming back, and if he isn't, Chuba Hubbard's been holding his own. Sam Darnold was leading the league in rushing touchdowns, however you phrase that, going into the second half of week 4. I don't know if he still holds that, but he has like 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns, which is unheard of for a quarterback who's actually not running a lot. He just keeps getting these QB sneaks and these 5 and 6 yard QB draws. I think Sam Darnold's going to run the ball a lot against this depleted Philadelphia defense. It's still a really young secondary. I love Jalen Hurts over there. I think it's going to get better for them, but not this week. DJ Moore has been a juggernaut. They're finally getting Robbie Anderson more involved into this team. Whoever's coming out of the backfield should have a decent day behind that offensive line. And Sam Darnold is definitely an upgrade from Teddy Bridgewater. He has established that. He was trapped in New York. The Jets can make just about anyone look bad. You take him out of that environment and put him on a decent team under Matt Rule, and I think we're seeing the benefits. The next game is going to be the Saints against the Washington football team. This will be a close one, but the Saints have really been confusing me lately. They go out and they 38-3 or 31-3, whatever it was, Green Bay, and then a couple weeks later, here we are talking about them losing to the Giants. I would say a bottom 5 team in the NFL. Daniel Jones can run around a bit. They have weapons, but his pocket presence is horrible. The O-line is horrible. Saquon is usually getting hurt, but he's actually recovered rather nicely. So if Antonio Gibson can play, he is questionable right now. I see him having an extremely good day. I see Scary Terry doing really well. And Logan Thomas is out right now, but Taylor Heineke has been making strides. They had a really nice week against Atlanta. Everyone has a nice week against Atlanta's defense. Nonetheless, I think it's going to come down to the defenses, and I'll take Washington's defense over New Orleans. Other than the first week against Green Bay, they haven't looked the best. I think Jameis Winston could get under a lot of pressure and really start to make those ill-advised throws that we saw a lot of last year before Tom Brady rolled into town over in Tampa Bay. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. We're going to see 2 or 3 picks out of him, and I think that Washington's going to come out on top. This will be an ugly one, but it will go to Washington. The Tennessee Titans against the Jacksonville Jaguars, a little AFC South action. Tennessee has to recover here. I can't see them losing to the Jets and then the Jaguars 2 weeks in a row. If that happens, push the panic button. Something better change. They have so much talent. There's no excuse to do that. Ryan Tannehill, even without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones as weapons, you cannot lose to the Jets. The Jets are not in condition to win games against good teams. I don't know what happened other than the fact that their secondary just folded. Trevor Lawrence has been making strides. Marvin Jones, Chenault is phenomenal. This team, especially with James Robinson having a pair of touchdowns last week, and they almost pulled a win out. This team has a lot of potential, but I don't think that they can get it done. I think Tennessee's going to have a very angry game. They're going to come out. They're going to put their foot on the gas pedal for all 4 quarters and really lay it out against the Jaguars. Miami against Tampa Bay is not going to be a close matchup at all. I think Tampa Bay is actually going to slaughter them. Miami is extremely hurt. They're still under Jacoby Brissett. Mike Gesicki's doing okay at their tight end spot, but I don't see it going great for them. Gaskin's not getting his usage at all. And Tampa Bay overall is just too loaded. I don't even have to explain this. This is the defending champs against a depleted team that Tom Brady's seen way too much. Still under Brian Flores, I believe, so I don't see it going well for Miami. Moving on over to Green Bay and Cincinnati, I think the Packers are going to handle this team. The Bengals are making strides. Burrow looks good. They should be getting Tyler Boyd back either this week or next week. T. Higgins is on his way back as well. It seems too loaded, though. Over at Green Bay, I think that Aaron Rodgers is still ticked off about what happened in Week 1 against the Saints. I think Aaron Jones will have another nice day. They've been using A.J. Dillon more. There's so much talent there that ultimately it's going to come down to each team's secondary because Green Bay's got MVS, they've got Devontae Adams, they've got Robert Tonyan over at tight end who hasn't been getting used a ton, but he's still getting used. So I'm chalking this up to the secondaries, and I'll take Green Bay's secondary here. Jair Alexander, Kevin King, despite the memes, Amos is doing fine. I will take Green Bay's secondary every day of the week. So Darius Smith, phenomenal linebacker. It's going to be close, but I think A-Rod gets a couple touchdowns and Burrow can't match it. He's not going to be able to throw downfield. The Denver Broncos against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Broncos are 3-1 and the Steelers are 1-3. I cannot believe in the Broncos. They're in a weird spot where they beat 0-3 teams at the time in a row. And then they play the 2-1 Ravens and just can't keep up with them, which I called. I don't think the Broncos have been playing the strength of schedule to really condition them for the games that are coming up. And despite the fact that Pittsburgh is 1-3 and has been struggling mightily, I think this is a recovery game. Big Ben's going to be able to sit in the pocket, make his throws. You cannot throw down the field on this secondary at all. So I hope they stay patient for their sake and for the sake that I'm picking them. But I think Najee Harris has a really nice day. He's going to run the ball nicely. It's going to build the play action, and they're going to do phenomenal. The Bears and the Raiders. I have predicted every single Bears game right so far, and I really wanted to pick them against the Raiders. But I saw too much that I liked from the Raiders in their first loss against, in my opinion, one of the best offenses in the league against the Chargers last week on Monday Night Football, that I don't think it's going to go well for the Bears. This is Justin Fields' first start as the cemented QB1 for the remainder of the season for the Bears, barring any injuries. And I think he'll have a nice day. I think he'll finally get his first passing touchdown because this secondary isn't that deep over in Las Vegas. But it's going to be an indoor game. I think Henry Ruggs, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, and ultimately Derek Carr and whoever's out of that backfield, whether it be Kenyon Drake or Josh Jacobs or Barber, is going to give this defense a fit. The only way the Bears have a chance here is if their offense stays out on the field long enough and scores a decent amount of points to give the defense a break. This has been the story since 2018. The Bears defense is out on the field too long. And although I think they can solve that problem with Justin Fields out there, he's had some nice connections with Darnell Mooney, who is actually questionable at the time of this recording. I think that high-flying offense, especially with Henry Ruggs being as fast as he is going to be able to burn the back half and the safeties on this Bears defense. As much as I hate to say it, I think it'll be a close one. Justin Fields is going to have a nice day offensively, but Las Vegas is going to win this thing. The Browns and the Chargers, this is another toss-up game. There are a lot of really good matchups. We have arguably the best defense in the league against arguably the most electric offense in the league over in Los Angeles. I think defense wins this game just like defense wins championships here. Maybe it's just me being scarred from watching my Bears give up 9 sacks against that defensive line and Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, and the rest of the nightmare that line is. But I think Justin Herbert, unless this team really plans around a lot of quick throws and good runs and screens with Austin Eckler, which I think they can do, it's going to be tough. Not to mention there are not a bunch of scrubs over in Cleveland either. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, that's the best running back tandem in the league right now in my opinion. Baker Mayfield has been struggling, but I think he really wakes up and targets OBJ and Austin Hooper a ton this week. You just have to be careful against the secondary. Derwin James had his first pick in a while. He's really been heating up, getting more pass deflections, quick tackles. This Los Angeles team is not to be messed with, but I think Cleveland is able to really put the pressure on them. They're able to damper Justin Herbert. I'm benching him in fantasy this week because of how scared I am of this defense. I think they're going to pull it out. It's not going to be a shootout by any means, in my opinion. A couple years ago it would have been, but with the state that these defenses are in, I really think that Cleveland's going to lock them up and they're going to come out with an ugly win. An NFC East matchup that I don't think is going to be close at all is what I'm going to cover next, and that's the Giants against the Cowboys. The Cowboys are loaded. The Giants lack any type of identity on defense other than Blake Martinez and James Bradbury, except when he gets burned by the number one wide receiver, which has been happening rather frequently recently, especially against Scary Terry a couple weeks ago. I think Dak's just too good, and this team's going to move on to 4-1. Darius Slayton, Kenny Galladay, that's a lot of talent right there. Obviously, Saquon Barkley coming out of the backfield, lots of talent. It's just not going to be utilized with Daniel Jones under center. Does he have talent? Yes. Can he run around? Yes. Does he have a decent arm? Yes. But the football IQ is not there, in my opinion, and I think Dak has all the heart, all the IQ, and all the talent around him to take out this Giants team easily at home to go 4-1. Another NFC West matchup here. We've got San Francisco against Arizona. Trey Lance is going to be making his first start, and I think he's going to have a nice day. It's going to be baptism by fire against a phenomenal Arizona defense, but I don't think that's going to matter. He'll do well, but the front runner for MVP, Kyler Murray, is just going to tear this team up. Absolutely tear this team up. I wouldn't be shocked if it's in the 40-20 range in terms of, Arizona having 40 and San Francisco having 20. There's too much of a talent gap here. Arizona's the only undefeated team left. They're playing at home. I don't think it's going to be close, especially against a rookie QB. With that being said, if San Francisco can keep it close and Trey Lance has a nice day, that's a front runner for the Rookie of the Year conversation because other than Jamar Chase, no one on the offensive end has really been standing up, in my opinion. Najee Harris, maybe. But I think Trey Lance has a really good shot if he can start the rest of the year and do well, but it's not going to be pretty against Arizona. Buffalo and Kansas City is going to be the Sunday Night Football matchup here. Kansas City kind of needs this win. They've had a couple of tough losses already. They recovered against the Eagles last week. Buffalo's looked really tough. Josh Allen has really started to cement himself into the MVP conversation. But I think especially in front of Chiefs Kingdom in primetime at home, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes still have this team's number. This was the AFC Championship last year, and I think it's going to go relatively similar. Buffalo's actually the number one ranked defense in a lot of categories right now, but they just came off a game against Houston. They've had some relatively easy matchups. They went up against a depleted Dolphins team as well, so there's 2 shutouts. I think their stats look a lot better than they actually are for this defense. So I have Patrick Mahomes running actually a decent amount. I think he can really distinguish a lot of the holes in this defense, rush the line, roll out left, roll out right, and then find some weapons down the field. Travis Kelce's always going to be a threat in the red zone, and I think they just score way too much for this Buffalo offense to really get going. The Monday night matchup this is going to be one of the easy ones in my opinion. Indianapolis lacks identity. Their identity is Jonathan Taylor right now, and while I think he's phenomenal, they're fighting from behind way too much to be able to rely on a running back. Whether it's Carson Wentz or Sam Ehlinger or Jacob Eason, whoever's behind center is just in this roulette right now. No one has the QB1 reps that they need going into this game. Baltimore has a phenomenal defense. Lamar Jackson has somehow put this team on his back, and I mean that because he has had to throw the ball. He's had to run around. He's had no one in the backfield because they keep going through their depth chart. People keep tearing their ACLs. I think he's going to carry them to another one, not that he'll really need to carry as much. Indianapolis looked like a great team with Phillip Rivers last year. I really liked them going into this year, but the QB roulette is just screwing everything. So I have Baltimore taking this one. It says to be determined, but I'm just going to talk about it because unless the entire Baltimore offense, unless Lamar Jackson gets hurt, I think they're going to do well. So if I jinxed it, I am very sorry, Ravens Nation, but I think the Ravens will do just fine, especially at home, and Indianapolis is going to fall to 1-4. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, leave comments, give us some feedback. I'm going to try and do more content than just this weekly stuff where I'm predicting. The NBA is coming up. Obviously, we have the MLB playoffs, so I'm going to try and be a lot more active with that and YouTube content in general. Other than that, we'll see you next time right here on All Sports Now.
But you know that I'm still over